As I think you all know, this year we will be lobbying on the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or the SNAP program. This has become a really big issue here in Washington and around the country. It was just kind of announced that President Trump and Vice President Pence have really taken this up as an issue that they will be campaigning on around the midterm elections. So it was already very contentious, the Farm Bill, before, and now as we're leading up to the elections, and especially after the elections in the lame duck, this will be one of the most critical issues that Congress will be debating. And after the elections, things are not going to get any easier, right? They're going to get more contentious in the lame duck, especially around this. So the timing is really critical because we know that Congress is going to come back from the elections and they're going to have to make a decision on passing a farm bill. And really what is critical within that is what does our kind of major food assistance program here in the United States, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, what will that look like? And you want to know what's at stake, right? Well, I think when we're looking at this, the big question is Congress is trying to decide between the House version of the bill and the Senate version of the bill, and which way that final version is going to look like. And the key question of that around the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program is, are we going to take food away from people because they are struggling to find a job or struggling to find work? That is really the key question that's at issue in these negotiations. So the House bill is very partisan. It would reduce or eliminate food assistance for about 2 million people and make food assistance contingent on your ability to maintain employment. So if you're struggling to find work, you could really get kicked off of the program. Whereas the Senate bill, very bipartisan, strengthens and protects the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. So we're pushing to keep, for Congress to pass a bill that is like the Senate version when it comes to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP program. So this is going to be decided at the exact time that annual meeting is happening. So you being in Washington at that moment, talking to your members of Congress, saying, hey, I think we shouldn't be taking food assistance away from people who need it. We need to be strengthening and protecting that program and ensuring people have the resources that they need to really be able to provide for their families and move up the economic ladder. So that is really what is at stake. That's what we're looking at. And the time that annual meeting is happening, that is the critical time when Congress is going to be making these decisions.
Wow, that's incredibly helpful, Amelia. And I think that it does sound like this is one of those issues, sadly, that is going to get pushed into a decision right at the end of the year. So we're going to be coming to town at the end of November, and as you told me earlier, Congress could literally vote on which version of the Farm Bill to pass right after our annual meeting, right after we have 450 people here lobbying. So if you want to know why it's important for you to come to Washington right now, it's because you're coming right at the moment when that decision is going to be made. Now, we promised, friends, that we would talk a little bit about lobbying and what is the way that you lobby, particularly if you don't feel like you're an expert. I always say to myself, I'm not Amelia. I don't know all of these details that she knows about this legislation. But for me, it's a story of what are my values? What does my faith tells me is important? And people say you've got to go into Congress and have a lot of facts. My view, and Amelia, I'd be curious about your view on this, is that what I'm bringing into a congressional office a lot of times is I'm a constituent, I live in the state, I live in the district, and I'm a person who believes that in the United States of America today, no one should go hungry. And I'm very concerned when I read and I hear from FCNL that Congress is considering legislation that could literally take food away from 2 million people. And one of the things that you've mentioned before, but I just wanted to get on the table as well, is this farm bill is setting policy not just for next year, but for 5 years. And so as people come in with their stories, and I would just add one more thing, that we've heard that there's some friends and other like-minded folk around the country whose Quaker meeting or their church has a food pantry that they support. Is that a good story to bring into a congressional office?
That is an excellent story to bring into a congressional office. I would say two things. I mean, first is, absolutely, you do not need, no one needs to be the policy expert when they're walking into a congressional office. We have power here as lobbyists at FCNL because of the constituents around the country. It is your voice that really, that is where that power comes from. And you don't need to know all the facts and all the details and all the statistics. Walking into an office and saying, I'm a constituent, I am brought here to speak based on what I believe, based on my faith. That is a very unique thing in Washington. It's a very powerful thing. So you just coming and speaking from your place of belief and of faith can really kind of be extremely, extremely powerful, especially on this issue, an issue relating to hunger that is so persistent, such an issue that shows up throughout scriptural texts. So that, I think, is very, very powerful. And then if you are part of if you're meeting or church has a food pantry that's associated with it, absolutely raise that. I mean, the fact of the matter is, if 2 million people lose food assistance or see their SNAP benefits cut, where are they going to go? They're going to come to the food pantries. And we know that a lot of, the food pantries and soup kitchens that so much of our meetings and churches are a part of, and you can't handle that sort of increased need. They're already stretched thin. And being able to tell that story and kind of share what the actual consequences would be for some of these policies is extremely important to convey with your members of Congress.
And I would just, that's such important information, Amelia. And I know that when I go into congressional offices, I always ask staff, well, what is it that you want to hear when we send constituents in? And what are the kinds of things that you do need and the kinds of things you don't need? And the staff regularly tell me, and I don't know what they tell you, but they regularly tell me, Jim, we know a lot about what's happening with federal policy. We know legislation and all of those details. What we need is that there are people back in the district who care about this, and what do they see as the connection to their district? If I have lived in a state for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and my values say that we as a country need to make sure that no one goes hungry, then that's the value that I'm bringing into the congressional office, and that's the important part of it, is what I keep hearing from staff. And I think that you, as a person attending annual meeting or a person going into a congressional office, don't need to worry about the technical parts of the farm bill or about all of the details and the ins and outs. You're really going in to say, I need you as congressional staff or as a member of Congress to really make sure that this doesn't leave those people without food. And we know that the kinds of information in the House bill really does leave people without food. So I think that emphasis on story is important. I want to say a couple of things, particularly for those of you who are new lobbyists, and then we'll come back to the issue that I want to assure you that we have done this for a long time, and a long time before either of us have been at FCNL. FCNL has been doing this. That before you get here, Amanda Levin's going to be reaching out to people in your state to request visits with your senators in the next couple of weeks. And then after that, probably just after the elections, reaching out to request visits with your members of the House of Representatives. And Amanda is a spreadsheet expert, and she's going to be keeping track of when all those visits are and making sure that we have the logistics to get there. And then when you get there,